As the year draws to a close, the air is filled with a magical presence and a sense of anticipation for new beginnings. It is a sign of the spirit that eternally returns, reaching its old age. And as it wanes with the sun, ancient winter solstice traditions come to life in Romanian folklore. Carolers dress in traditional masks and costumes, going from house to house, reenacting old myths and blessing the hosts with their sacred songs. Men sing carols by the fire to amplify its powers. Villagers roll burning wheels down hills, recreating the sun's journey through the sky. And waiting for the ancestors to return through the chimney, women leave food offerings by the hearth, whilst the sacred log burns to restore its divine spirit to the sky and revive the sun. In Romanian, the name of the sacred spirit is Crăciun, as is the name of the holiday we celebrate this time of year. It translates to Christmas in English, and it is celebrated as such by Romanian Christians, but the two words have completely different etymologies, and whilst the English term refers to the birth of Christ, the Romanian one refers to something else entirely. My name is Radiana, and I shall carry you across the threshold to a time when the log and lightning of Crăciun lit up our hearts. It is said that once upon a time there lived in Nazareth a shepherd named Moş Crăciun, a wealthy but wicked man with a heart of stone. He was cruel to his wife and 3 daughters and punished them whenever something in the household was not to his liking. The poor women were all frail and crippled. They slept in turns when he would leave for the mill so that he wouldn't catch them unprepared for his return. One day he left with 12 carriages for the mill whilst the women were buried in chores. Just as they were dashing about for forks and logs, the Virgin Mary appeared on their doorstep with Joseph. She asked them for shelter and a meal as they were weary from the journey, and soon the hour would come for her to give birth. They were sent there by Moș Crăciun's younger and poorer brother, the old Eve with a frosty beard, known as Moș Ajun. Mrs. Crăciun, or Crăciuneasa, replied that she would happily let them in, but her husband was a bitter and wicked man. "Look at my daughters," she said. "One is lame, another is blind, and the third is crippled. And I am not any better. See the marks on my hands and body." Mary looked at her with great compassion. Crăciuneasa was all bruised and beaten, but Mary, in her divine power, knew all this already. She asked her to let her hide in the stable, as her legs couldn't hold her anymore. A merciful and good woman, Crăciuneasa made room for Mary in the stable near the cattle manger, where she thought her husband would not see her. At that time there were still no stars in the sky, only the moon wandered across it, and people worked under the moon as they do now under the sun. Soon the time came for Mary to give birth, and with Crăciuneasa as her midwife, she delivered the Son of God. And as the oxen nursed the newborn with warm breaths, the first star appeared in the night sky just above the stable. It was the evening star, the vesper announcing to the world the light of Jesus, and after it all other stars in the sky appeared too. Moș Crăciun saw the light from afar, and he was startled. He thought that the women set his house on fire, and so he rushed to extinguish the flames. Back home, Crăciuneasa sent her crippled daughter, whose hand was out of place, to give Mary her childbirth blessings. Mary was very happy with her company. The girl was a kind soul who cared for her after the delivery and accommodated all her needs according to Romanian customs, so she wanted to reward her and the other women. And so she put the girl's hand back into its place and even turned it into gold. Then Crăciuneasa sent in the lame girl, and Mary gave her a golden foot. Finally she sent in the blind one, and Mary gave her good eyes. Just then Moș Crăciun arrived home, bewildered at what he found. He expected to see the house burning, but instead he saw the stars in the sky and the vesper. He looked but could not see how there was so much light around his house without anything burning. He roared like thunder, and the women of the house rushed to his side, trembling with fear. He sensed that someone was in the house while he was gone, and was upset that his wife did not come onto his path to greet him properly. Crăciuneasa begged him to forgive her, as she was washing her hands when he arrived. Moș Crăciun looked down and saw her hands still stained with blood. He became so angry that he took his axe and chopped off Crăciuneasa's hands from the elbow. Poor Crăciuneasa. She cried out in pain and ran to the stable. When Mary saw her wounds, she told her not to lament, for everything was done for the sake of salvation, and sent her to fetch her detached hands. Crăciuneasa did as instructed and returned to Mary with her fallen limbs. Mary blew gently on them and stuck them back in place. Her hands were now more beautiful than before and even polished in gold. Grateful, she kissed Mary's hands and rushed to show her husband. When Moș Crăciun saw the miracle, he remained dazed and speechless, and so Crăciuneasa spoke instead, telling him that the woman in their stable put her hands back. She told him how she healed their girls, and so moved was Moș Crăciun by these miracles that his heart opened up. Falling on his knees, he asked his wife for forgiveness for all the harm he had done to her, and then, going to the stable, he kneeled before Mary and Jesus, acknowledging him as God. And because Jesus was born in his house, and because Moș Crăciun was the first man to put his faith in him, the day of Jesus' birth has since been called Crăciun. To celebrate his change of heart, Moș Crăciun lit a bonfire of evergreen logs in his courtyard and performed the sun's dance around it. To everyone who joined, and to Mary and Jesus, he gave pastoral gifts of milk, cheese, curd, and sour cream. And ever since, he returns every year to celebrate and impart his blessings to both the young and the old. This legend is a bit different than the merry ones you may hear about Father Christmas, and like many others in Romanian folklore, it is woven with pre-Christian and Christian influences. But before we unravel it, we must understand the difference between the character of Father Christmas and how he came to be conflated with Santa Claus. Santa Claus, the jolly, red-suited figure whose image is deeply ingrained in popular culture, is a rather recent creation whose Christian origin is Saint Nicholas, the 4th century bishop renowned for his generosity. Saint Nicholas was conflated with the Yule Father. We see this in the Dutch Sinterklaas, whose legend is similar to the wild hunt of Woden or Odin, who is the Yule Father, and was believed to lead a ghostly procession of hunters across the sky around the winter solstice. In Romanian culture, however, Father Christmas has not been conflated with Saint Nicholas. Rather, the celebration of the deity that survives as Father Christmas was conflated with the celebration of the birth of Christ. As for Saint Nicholas, we celebrate him on his feast day, December 6th. The night before, we polish our boots and leave them by a window, hoping for Moș Miculaș, as I called him in childhood living in Transylvania, to stuff them with gifts by morning. Among all the sweets and toys, the most desired gift was always a traditional rod or wand made from the decorated twig of a sacred tree. The rod had to be placed in water, and if it bloomed by Christmas, it was a sign of divine favor. His celebration, too, is marked by pre-Christian influences, as the saint was conflated with local variations of the Thracian rider and Old Man Winter. It is said that if Saint Nicholas arrives on a white horse on his feast, the first snow will fall and the winter will be short and mild. If he arrives on a black horse, there will be no snow for a while, and the winter that awaits will be long and harsh. But whatever the weather, his celebration marks the onset of winter festivities and preparations for the arrival of Father Christmas. Although Father Christmas is not synonymous with Saint Nicholas in Romanian folklore, we still see Christian influences within his legend, and we see within his character a transfiguration of the Magi bearing gifts. However, his pre-Christian qualities are much more prominent. Father Christmas is a creator archetype with Saturnine qualities, a cruel god who demands sacrifice, while Mrs. Christmas is a symbol of sacrifice. The motif of her mutilated hands, believed by some scholars to be remnants of an ancient sun cult, is rather widespread across Indo-European traditions, such as in the tale of the Germanic god Tyr losing his hand to Fenris wolf. According to the Dictionary of Romanian Mythology, Father Christmas, or Moş Crăciun, is a solar deity of Indo-European origin specific to the territories inhabited by the ancestors indigenous to the Romanians, the Getodacians, and he is identified with the Roman god Saturn and with the Iranian god Mithra, or Deus Sol Invictus. The determinative Moş, which means elder, ancestor, forefather, and progenitor, indicates the age of the adored god who must die and be reborn with the calendar time at New Year. The ancient celebration of Crăciun overlapped the Roman Saturnalia, then the birth of Mithra, and after the advent of Christianity, the birth of Jesus. In variants of his legend, Moş Crăciun is said to have been born before All Saints, and in carols, he is referred to as the oldest of all elders, who returns every winter solstice without fail. But in all, he is portrayed as the first man to become a Christian after Christ was born on his day and in his home. His very conversion is proof of his initial condition as a pre-Christian deity. The profane depictions of his character are believed by some scholars to reveal a historical truth that at the dawn of Christianity, the deity that became Father Christmas was so revered by the people that he could not be entirely excluded from the fall calendar or even the consciousness of those who embraced the Christian faith. In his legends, he is portrayed as you would a ruthless pagan god, only as a wicked old man who does everything in his power to oppose or prevent the birth of the infant Jesus, suggesting that Christ's arrival required the departure of the old and the death of the god before him. But Moş Crăciun continues to return every winter solstice, and he is very much beloved as an endearing old man who carries the mystery and wisdom of the ages. He is the very spirit of the holiday and is invoked relentlessly in every carol, tradition, tiding, and greeting. In carols dedicated to him, we learn that he is an old man with a long beard and hair of a particular shade of white called dalb, often associated with apple blossoms. The word originates from the Proto-Indo-European dal, which means to bloom, and del, which means light, both words investing the mythical figure with attributes connected to vegetation and fire. As mentioned before, the determinative Moş means elder, ancestor, forefather, or progenitor. It is the male counterpart of the female baba, meaning crone or hag. And in common language, a Moş can be a distant ancestor or someone's grandfather, an old wise man, or the husband of the village midwife, which in Romanian is moașă. Meanwhile, his name Crăciun comes from the Latin word for oak, Quercus. Quercus itself is rooted in the Proto-Indo-European perku, which gave the form Perkwunos, meaning the striker or lord of the oaks, and refers to the god of storm, sky, and vegetation in Proto-Indo-European mythology. Forms of Perkwunos are found throughout the Balto-Slavic region, all referring to either oak, thunder, or a thunder god like Perun. According to linguist Roman Jakobson, this root appears, for example in Latin and Germanic languages, as a substitute for the noun oak, a preferred tree for storms and devoted to the thunder god. And in the Indo-European tradition, the same root with a nasal suffix means a hill covered with oak, an oak forest. In the words of Mircea Eliade, the tree most often struck by lightning, the oak, is endowed with the majesty of the supreme divinity, such as the oak of Zeus at Dodona, of Jupiter Capitolinus in Rome, the oak of Donar near Geismar, the sacred oak of Romove in Prussia, and the oak of Perun among the Slavs. A great many beliefs connected with the sanctity of thunder are to be found all over the world. Thunder was from the beginning, and still is, the essential attribute of the sky gods. It is a weapon of the sky god in all mythologies, and any spot he has struck with lightning becomes sacred. The oak tree was thus sacred among the Indo-Europeans, some of whom cremated the dead using oak wood, believing that the soul would ascend into the sun's light. The oak was sacred to the ancient Celts, Germans, and the Norse, who associated the tree with their thunder gods, while Slavic and Lithuanian thunder gods were offered ever-burning log fires. For many cultures, the oak was the axis mundi, the center of the world and the cosmic tree, and people across Germany and Scandinavia made offerings at its roots for good luck and protection as late as the 19th century. In Romanian tradition, the oak and the fir tree are both considered sacred and axis mundi, and until the early modern period, the oak was a phytomorphic witness to legal bindings and disputes, as well as a pillar between property borders. Its wood was used for funerary rites, and its spirit was invoked in incantations for protection against the mother of the forest, the evil eye, and even witches and the evil dead. Most notably, the oak was the sacrificial body of the old god, who was revived through the rite of incineration. The oak log was kindled into the hearth on Christmas Eve and had to be rekindled for as long as possible. The remaining embers and ashes were considered magical. Some were preserved for the making of traditional cures and remedies, and others were spread on the fields before plowing or mixed with cattle food for prosperity in the new year. From the log burning in the hearth and the smoke ascending through the chimney, the old god returns to the sky where it revives the sun and regains his thunder. He thus returns eternally through a ritual that reenacts a cosmogonic act, a ritual that converts our time into mythical time. This mythical time is sacred and lasts for 12 days, spanning from Christmas to Epiphany, regarded as a prefiguration of the 12 months of the year and a period of regression to chaos. To usher in the new year and scare away the old one, people perform time renewal rituals, some as simple as shouting and making loud noises that mimic thunder by breaking dishes and banging pots together. And in many cultures, there exists a shared belief in the return of the dead to their families, often as living dead. According to Eliade, this belief reflects the aspiration for the suspension of time at this mythical moment, a time when the world undergoes destruction and recreation. During this period, barriers between the dead and the living dissolve, and the dead can be contemporaries with the living once again. To honor the ancestors, spirits, and supernatural beings visiting us at this time, villagers leave offerings by the hearth, often as traditional food and milk, which is considered the water of the afterlife. The hearth is in many cultures a portal between the other world and ours, and its extension, the chimney, creates a passage for the dead returning home, Father Christmas bearing gifts, and the lightning of the thunder gods. Until next time, Merry Oakmas and a Happy New Year.